thank you for joining us for episode 57 of Project Geekology. I hope that you have your Zooms charged because it is going to be a doozy of an episode. I am one half of your host, Anthony, and joining me as always is...
Rocket Raccoon. No, my name's Dakota, and I'm super excited to discuss, finally, Guardians 3. We've been teasing it for a couple weeks now. And
absolutely.
This movie is so good, and I can't wait to dig into the nitty-gritty. But Anthony, what's up? How you been?
Man, since we last recorded, I have seen Into the Spider-Verse 2, or Across the Spider-Verse, but that was a really good movie, and I can't wait to actually cover that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And you know me, man. I'm always gaming, and I've been catching up on some anime also. There's one called Bofuri, and it's like a video game one.
I don't know it. Yeah, this is something completely foreign to me.
So literally, the entire title of that anime is called Bofuri, I Don't Want to Get Hurt, so I'll max out my defense.
That's pretty cool.
I love that anime is starting to add, like, their titles are like sentences now.
Yeah, it's just fun.
It's absolutely funny. So I've been catching up on that. They just released a second season, I think earlier this year. I think it's done now, but I've been trying to catch up on that. I've been hearing a lot about it, so I was like, you know what, let me get into that.
Awesome.
And man, I always get into these like stints where I want to play World of Warcraft, so I'm in one of those stints right now.
Is the anime like an RPG type like video game?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of it's giving me like D&D vibes based on the title alone.
Yes.
Defense.
So the main character of the show, her video game name is Maple, and she just like maxed out her vitality. She didn't have strength at first, but then now she's got some kind of abilities that help out with that, and then she really didn't move all that much, but now she has abilities that kind of help her get around a little bit faster. So it's really cool. It's
unique.
It's got some really cool, crazy, like awesome scenes, and then it dials into like the really like cutesy stuff, but it's a really wholesome anime, but it, crazy awesome at the same time. It has its shonen moments.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds actually something like that I would totally give a shot, because I love anime that deals with like Western fantasy RPGs. It's just kind of like the coolest concept and bridge, so I like that.
They love our RPGs, man.
They love them. I don't blame them. We make some pretty good RPGs. They make some pretty good RPGs too. It's just a very different breed, though.
They do. Final Fantasy 11 and 14.
Those are two good ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Just geeking it out. And actually, in a few weeks, I have SuperCon that I'm going to be going to. So at some point, we'll cover that also.
I would like to hear your thoughts on that. I think next episode, you're actually going to be covering a previous New York Comic Con that you visited and a specific event that you went to as part of press. So that was pretty cool, when that happened years back. But I'm excited to hear that story.
Yes.
With fresh ears.
I think I had told you a bit about it, like when I had gotten out, and I think I had maybe some footage from it.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking back on it, I do have some fun thoughts about it. But yeah, we'll talk more about that in our next episode. But yeah, enough about me, man. What have you been up to?
Since we last recorded, I have had the absolute craziest couple weeks. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been all bad. It's gonna sound really bad once I actually talk about everything. One of my grandparents died on my mom's side, so
oh, wow.
That
I'm sorry to hear about that.
Thank you. It sucks, but we saw it coming for a bit. He had a heart attack, and then, a week later, his body failed. But I was able to go down and visit my grandma up, she's a little north of Orlando. And, while we were down there, we stopped at, Disney Springs and stuff. So, silver lining to a terrible thing. Also that week, someone stole my catalytic converter from my car. So, I know. I had to basically just spend $1,000 so that...
That's a thing?
that's a big thing in New York right now. Is people, it's happening everywhere. I'm surprised you haven't heard about it, but there's like precious metals in catalytic converters, which is like a very easy to reach thing on the bottom of your car if you just have like some way to jack up a car really quickly, and like a saw that you can cut it off. But it's really inconvenient for everyone that you're stealing from, because you can drive without it, but your car sounds like a motorcycle. And
yes, dude.
I've been
in a car with a bad catalytic converter, and that thing sounds like you are driving like a Harley Davidson.
And
that thing is loud.
And it's super sluggish too. It's like driving a lawnmower. So I had to like drive my car looking like a total jerk with the loudest car on the street, moving super slow.
Not trying to sound like you have a loud muffler.
Yeah, no, I felt like an idiot.
Yeah, no, it is embarrassing, but dude, that's honestly, to tell you the truth, like I don't even think that's a thing down here in Miami. People going around stealing catalytic converters.
Well, I hope it never.
I mean, they
becomes
might
a thing.
be somewhere, but
I hope it doesn't become a thing, because it's really inconvenient. But like, it's the funniest thing. At like 5:30 in the morning, I like woke up and I heard drilling. I heard like a drilling noise outside, and I'm like, what are my neighbors doing? I thought they were like, making a hole in the wall to like put up a picture or something. That's what it sounded like. And yeah, so I left for work at like 6:45, and boom, it was my
so
day
you
was
like
off
just
to a
crank
bad
your
start.
car up, and that thing's like, like you're like, whoa, what is going on right now?
Yes, that's exactly what happened, and I was freaking out, because I was just like, what did I do to my car? What just happened? And
I'm like, I know I'm laughing, but like I genuinely actually feel bad about that, because that sucks. Like, I mean, I would understand if it's like, if it went bad maybe.
Yeah.
But like somebody actually, dude, like jacking your car up, and you're like, yeah, man.
And it was all of 30 seconds. It was so quick. Like the actual noise that they made from like sawing off with a Sawzall, my catalytic converter. It was so quick, and I hope it never happens to any of you guys, because it is like the most inconvenient thing to steal from somebody. Like, you can't really go to work with that. You can't. It's an easy, like, huge chunk of money that you got to front.
Yeah,
so that
that's the biggest thing, Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's cool that you can still drive your car, but it sucks because now, like, everybody's like, oh, dang, like, that thing is loud. That car sounds like it's gonna explode.
Yeah, so my car was in the shop for a week.
Oh,
my car was in the shop for a week. I had to be driven around. I had to get like Ubers and rides home.
Yeah, that sucks.
It was just annoying. Anyway, so that happened. My car's fixed now. $1,000 gone. Insurance paid the rest. But
deductible.
Yeah, it was $1,000 deductible. I gotta get a better insurance plan, clearly. It sucked, but whatever. So yeah, that happened, and then like these past couple days in New York have been crazy. I don't know if you've seen.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask you about that. Like, dude, the fires up in Canada, man. Like, I seen that you guys have like this crazy. It looks like the apocalypse up there. Like,
it feels like. Dude, yesterday I was at work. I shouldn't have been at work yesterday because I work outside. I'm a construction worker.
Yeah.
The air quality was absolutely horrendous. I had a mask on, but I don't think that helped too much. But, dude, walking down the street like around like 1 or 2 in New York was nuts. I've never seen anything like it. It was like walking around in Blade Runner 2049 or like Mad Max or something. It was absolutely bonkers. I've never seen it. It was honestly really cool. It was cool, but it was also really scary because, like, you don't want to get sick.
Right. Yeah, I've been seeing pictures from out there, and like the smoke is reaching. It's like reaching south of you also. Like, I think even like Washington DC has got like not as bad as New York, but they have a bit of like smog. I mean, dude, it hasn't come down here, thankfully. That would be insane, dude. If it reached down to Miami, then those fires are bad.
Oh, well, the fires are bad.
I mean, they're bad.
They're really bad.
But it's like it's like setting records and stuff, like, and that's not the kind of record that I would want to be setting.
No, it does look like it's pretty much dissipated. I'm looking at my map now, my toxicity map that comes on the weather app, and Florida's still green, but like Georgia and South Carolina have, I don't know, it's in the yellow, so that's unhealthy. So clearly the smog and like the toxic air has like particulated down south, but I feel like by the time you're not even going to notice it in Miami if it ever does happen.
Right. That would be insane. I'd be like, dude, what is the smoke doing down here?
Yeah.
Canada is super far away.
Today's been a lot better though. I decided to take the day off of work. I didn't want to, do 2 days outside for, a day's pay, whatever. So I didn't go to work today. But I got some work done on my D&D video that I'm working on, my D&D timeline. That's almost finished, and I'm really excited about getting that out.
Very nice.
Actually, I was working on that right before you called me for this podcast. So yeah.
Very, very nice.
What else, man? Across the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
Yo, such a good movie. And coincidentally, we're going to be talking about Into the Spider-Verse on our next episode, which we're actually filming right after this, because we just have so much to talk about right now, and we're excited to get a double episode in. But while we're here, let's talk about Guardians 3.
Oh man, Guardians 3. Are we ready to dive into Guardians 3?
I don't know. Usually we start with the first and or second movie of a trilogy before we, cover something. But enough time has passed, and most of you, if not all of you, listening have seen the first couple Guardians movies, and I think we can give like our general thoughts on it. Anthony, what are your thoughts on the first two movies?
The first two movies, I would say, dude, I loved them. I remember going into seeing Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, and coming out like absolutely loving it, because let's be real, they took a squad that nobody knew. I heard of Guardians of the Galaxy in passing, but I never sat down and read any of the comics. I didn't know who was on the team. I just knew that there was a team that existed called the Guardians of the Galaxy, but they were never on my radar. I mean, when you have teams like the Avengers and X-Men and so on and so forth, you're not really like diving into it. So I would say, I mean, I don't know about you, but to me personally, I guess in my head, Guardians of the Galaxy was like a deep cut. Like, I'm just like, man, these came out of nowhere with these guys.
We'll be back after a quick break.
I hate talking.
Do you love talking about any topic and are never frustrated during conversations? Then I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if there are topics that you avoid, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Do you know the definition of every word others use? I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if you are curious about the definition and historical usage of words, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Do you know about current events and other random topics? Then I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if you enjoy conversations on a variety of topics, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Listen to I Hate Talking wherever you get your podcasts.
Episodes drop every Thursday. Listen, like, and follow I Hate Talking today.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know how James Gunn got Kevin Feige to like say yes to that, because when he must have had a great pitch, and obviously it's a great movie, so I don't doubt that it was a great pitch, but it's such, like you said, a deep cut. These are like C to F tier characters, like they aren't on anybody's radar, or weren't on anybody's radar. More people knew Howard the Duck than Rocket Raccoon.
Right, dude. Like I knew Howard the Duck. I knew that character existed, but I didn't know who Rocket Raccoon, Drax, or Star-Lord, or Groot. Like, I didn't know any of them. And for James Gunn to really take these unknown characters, bring them into the forefront, and making them like just names that people who know the MCU, they're like, oh yeah, man, I love Guardians of the Galaxy. They're awesome movies, They're like, oh, I love the characters. He did like a good job. Yeah. Like, I mean, they
that first
clearly
one,
put it in the right hands.
Yeah, that first movie is such it's an anomaly within the MCU. I mean, that's not to say that I don't love the MCU and its general output, but this movie just feels different than the general output because it's unique. It has its own voice, and it's cool how Gunn was able to take the already like seeded Thanos story. Mm-hmm. And take they took two of Thanos's daughters, Nebula and Gamora, and found a way to incorporate them into this band of misfits,
Yeah, the first two films were contained within that larger overarching story with I guess we'd call it the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, the first three phases are now called the Infinity Saga, and now we're currently in the Multiverse Saga, which I think we've just entered phase 5 with the past couple films. But yeah, so then a couple years later, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 came out, where it introduced Ego.
Yes.
As Star-Lord's father, meaning that he's now half Celestial, and that was a lot of fun. It was just unique, and I kind of like Peter Quill as a character because they've kind of made him into being this Peter Pan-like character who doesn't want to grow up. He's stuck in the past and
stuck in the 80s. You know, what he knew.
He's definitely stuck in the 80s and what he knew, and with Ego coming into the picture, he's finally able to confront his origin a little bit, and I really appreciate that aspect of Guardians 2.
And then that brought on Mantis,
who's one of my favorite characters now. You know, she just brings so much heart and character into these films, and she's kind of like the counterpart for Drax, because he's always the dumbest in the group, but she's like a different kind of dumb.
Right, and it's funny because she encourages Drax's like stupidity. Yeah. And it's funny because it is, you know, we'll talk about it more, it is addressed in this newer film.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I absolutely loved these first two, and I liked that father-son dynamic that Yondu and Peter ended up having, and that Yondu kind of shedded off that like hard edge Ravager to like really show that in his own way he was like a father to Peter.
He might not have been his father, but he was his daddy.
Yeah. And then we got I don't know, did we get him in the first film? I know for sure he was in the second one. Kraglin
was in the first film, yes.
But he had more of a role in the second one.
Correct.
And
yeah,
he's your boy's brother. He's played by Sean Gunn.
Yeah. For anyone who's watched Gilmore Girls.
Oh, you know I did.
He's a main character in Gilmore Girls, and he's so
dude, he is so funny in that show. Dude, he like every time he shows up on screen, I know it's gonna be something that makes me die laughing. And it's like that role like prepared him for Kraglin, because he just...
What's his name? Kirk.
Dude,
yeah.
Oh my god. It was hard for me to put two and two together because he's so much younger in Gilmore Girls. This one, you know, he's older, but he also has all the stuff going on, you know, scruffy looking. Yeah. And then when I realized that it was like the same person, I was like, oh my gosh. So it was like, I'm watching this man like in this show like all this time. It's like it prepared him for this moment, because like he's hilarious in these movies too.
And jumping ahead a little bit, shortly before Guardians 3 came out, we had a holiday special for Guardians of the Galaxy where Drax and Mantis decide to give Peter a Christmas present, and the Christmas present that they decide to give him is kidnapping Kevin Bacon, one of his childhood heroes, to come to nowhere and, you know, just be his. And, you know, it's basically it's human trafficking, but obviously they take him back.
Right, they're practically like getting him Kevin Bacon as like a pet, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're... Gosh, dude, Mantis and Drax, like, you just do not want to leave them alone because there's just like ridiculousness that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was a really funny special, and also had some like endearing parts to it also.
It also gave us the information that Peter has a biological sister in Mantis. You know, like she's been holding out on him because she was worried that it would hurt him or hurt his feelings, but she's pretty sure that since Ego was both of their fathers, they share some biological DNA, and this obviously makes Peter extremely happy. It's the best present he could ever ask for.
Right, you know, he has like that connection, like,
yeah,
you know, he's the Guardians were family to him, but like now he has like that biological connection to somebody. So yeah.
All right, now we come to it. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Who do you think the main character is for this one?
Rocket, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a question. I don't even know why I asked.
Rocket's the main character. I really think that this film was really to help kick off the next iteration of the Guardians. And dude, man, the film was just, it brought you like in the highs, like you're laughing and there's like really good moments, and they would bring you so low, but not in a bad way. But let me tell you, man,
they would punch you in the feels regularly.
I 100%, and I'm not, dude, I will not deny it, dude, I cried during this film. I cried.
Oh, yeah.
100, and like, dude, and you know what's insane is that when I went to, so I seen it 3 times, and every single time I still cried, bro. Even though I knew what was happening, it was just so heartbreaking seeing some of the stuff that we seen on screen, you know, especially like a lot of the animal stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're so desensitized to human on human violence, but when it comes to animal cruelty, it strikes in us like such anger and compassion, because, you know, these are ultimately helpless creatures for the most part. Obviously they can fight back to some extent, but compared to like humans who, you know, have the ability to like generally much stronger than a small creature and much smarter too, so we have the ability to be far more cruel than the average animal who's just trying to protect itself. And seeing the animal cruelty, even though it's fictionalized, it's fake, no animals were harmed in this, it does hurt every single time when you watch it. It's just you feel for, because you know some creatures are, you know, abused out there.
Right.
It's tough.
Right. And I think maybe we attach this like childlike innocence to animals, especially the smaller ones.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so whenever we witness something like that, it's almost like if somebody was committing these atrocities to a human baby.
A baby,
you know?
Yeah.
And especially like, dude, especially when you had young Rocket who could barely speak English. It was like a child speaking, you know, messing up pronunciations of words and trying to figure out things and stuff. So like whenever you seen that stuff, and then especially like when they first like showed him when he was like super young, and they did all that experimentation, you know, they cut open his scalp and did stuff to his brain. And like, you know, just like him just squeaking out, you know, hurts, you know, it's like, oh,
ooh,
bro,
man, that line kills
bro,
me.
that line, I know, like, you know, and just thinking back on it, it's like kind of like bringing back those feelings a little bit.
Even the first shot of the movie, where it's a cage full of baby raccoons, and there's just a hand reaching in slowly to grab the one who's clearly like very scared but not running away.
Right.
And you obviously understand that that's Rocket, and then it morphs into an adult Rocket, and he's still totally a messed up creature. He's a messed up dude who's, you know, just
jamming out to Creep,
jamming out to Radiohead to drown out his feelings.
That was actually a really good, like, well picked song for that moment too.
Dude, they all are.
Yeah, they all are.
The
Yeah,
songs in this
absolutely.
movie.
Dude, but I really felt, just to let y'all know, we'll probably be jumping around a lot, kind of picking through parts of the film, but I felt the music in all the movies are great, but the music in this one and the way that it was utilized just felt so much different, and it felt so much more powerful. And like just the usage, man, like it was fantastic. Like I absolutely loved what they did with this one. This was like an evolved Guardians of the Galaxy. It felt like its own thing. It was kind of self-contained. You had spoken about it before that it felt like closure, but dude, the music was just like fantastic.
Well, let me jump onto that, because I think you're onto something, that it was different. The music felt more crucial or essential to what the people listening to the music were feeling, because most of the music, if not all of the music that was chosen, besides the score, was like in-universe music. Like this was music that was being played on some speaker or other that the characters could hear.
Yeah.
That's something that I think is really, I mean, they did that in the previous films, but I'm not sure if they did that for every song. I don't remember correctly on that. But what's cool about Peter being such a fan of classic music is that he's given that love and reverence for Earth music to this band of Guardians, who in turn have made it like a culture around music within their little like severed celestial head of nowhere. because they have speakers all over nowhere that whenever Rocket decides to play, I don't know, Florence and the Machine's Dog Days Are Over, it just plays to everybody. And it's a block party every day. It's so cool.
It really was. And the device that, remember in the first one, he's using a Walkman, so he's using cassette tapes. But in like the newer ones, and especially in this one, you see it a lot more, is he's using the Zune. And I love that he's using a Zune instead of an iPod.
Yeah,
I love it.
Unique.
And it's crazy because whenever they show something in a movie, that especially a popular movie, it raises the sales of stuff. So I went online. I was like, you know what? Now that this movie's out, let me see how much these things cost now. And it skyrocketed. It went from like they're selling these things for like maybe $60-$70. Now they're selling them for like $100 to $200. I'm like,
and it's all like old Zunes, right? Like nobody's
right.
Anymore,
It was a Microsoft.
The Microsoft Zune.
Yeah, the Microsoft Zune. And dude, like Microsoft doesn't even have software that supports it now. The Zune software is actually like community made. But Microsoft, if you were to like, use a Zune, Microsoft would be like, I think somebody I was messing, like I was like looking at it, I was like, dude, if you were to get a Zune nowadays, like how would you even use it? How would you even put music on it? And it was like, even Microsoft will point to this like, oh, we don't support this anymore, but here's the software that the community made.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Okay. No, I thought that was cool too. So, but yeah, like, and music, it is crucial in it because, I mean, your boy almost loses his life to save that thing.
Yeah, for sure. And this was given to him at the end of Guardians 2. Kraglin gives Peter the Zune, saying that there's something like 200 songs on here. And Peter's like, 200 songs?
Right.
And that's where he gets the Zune.
Wasn't Yondu gonna give it to him? But Yondu never got the chance.
I don't remember. It could be. I think I remember seeing it in Yondu's like bedside table when Groot was looking for his little, fin for his head. Yeah. I think I remember seeing the Zune in there, but I could be wrong. Okay, so let's go back. Yes, you said you jumped to the very end that Star-Lord almost risked his own life while that ship was, that it was basically like, what's the guy's name? What's the villain's name? The High Evolutionary. Yes. It was basically like the High Evolutionary's like Genesis ship was just destroyed. It was self-destructing, obviously. So in that moment, he decided that his music was as important as his own life because I guess he couldn't live without, the beats.
Right? The High Evolutionary, I feel like it's been a long time since we've had a villain that we're like, man, this guy's got to go.
Right.
We've had Thanos, and you knew that he was bad, but like there was like a weird likability to him. There's people who liked him. He had like a noble cause, but he was going about it the wrong way. A lot of these villains do. This guy was just, he wanted to create a perfect society, but he was just going about it just insane with these experimentations and taking animals and trying to make them like pretty much into humans. They wanted them to be humans, and he goes as far as to making Counter Earth, which is a replica of Earth, because he liked Earth, he had visited Earth, he liked the arts and the music, and he wanted to pretty much create that. And we find out that he's the one that's behind the creation of the Sovereign also, and some other societies. But like, I just find it insane that like, he has this Earth, and he's got this, like, all these people that are, like, living there, and Star-Lord, confronts them. And we'll talk a little bit about, Star-Lord confronting him because Rocket, he created Rocket, so they needed something from what was he called? Like, one of his, like, henchmen, He had, like, a code in this, like, computer on the side of his head.
Oh, I forget what they were called. Yeah, I feel bad for whoever's listening to this right now because we're bouncing off. Like, we went from like the song at the beginning of Guardians to the fact that Peter was saving his Zune to now we're talking about the High Evolutionaries' evil plan, but I totally agree. Dude, he is so evil. Like, he's just a pure bad guy. And, like, there's no redeeming qualities about him. But what's interesting that I find is, and I think this is, like, symbolic about, you know, Rocket's evolution as a character, his arc, is that he doesn't kill the High Evolutionary. He allows him to live.
Right.
And
like, old Rocket would have taken him out right away.
Yes. And his reasoning is because I'm a guardian of the freaking galaxy or something like that. And what I find super interesting about that is we find out later that Rocket becomes the leader of the future Guardians of the Galaxy team, and Peter decides to step down and do his own thing. And I think there's a moment in the film where Peter stops being the leader of the Guardians, and I think it's when he, like, knowingly kills one of those henchmen to get the code.
Save Rocket. When he takes that dive off the ship.
Because the guy was asking for mercy, and he refused to give it to him. And that's when he, you know, symbolically in my head, that's like my fan theory, is that's when he stopped being a guardian of the galaxy.
Like, he wanted to step away.
Yeah, and it just kind of shows the difference between these two characters, because I think Peter in the past would have been more open to showing mercy versus Rocket, who wasn't, and now that's flipped because Rocket's the one showing mercy and Peter stopped doing so.
Right.
And that's partially why he needed to step away and do his own thing for a little bit.
So I do believe that he especially he especially switched after they saw what Rocket went through.
Oh, well, yeah, totally.
And, like, all of them, the entire crew, they were, like, pretty heartbroken, and, like, I loved...
They were disgusted. They were disgusted by what they saw.
They were disgusted, and they were, like, heartbroken that Rocket had to go through that stuff. And just the family dynamic that they have. It's such a, like, I love seeing, like, when a group of people are so close and they're not, like, bonded by blood. They're bonded by the stuff that they have gone through. At first, they got together by, you know, it was chance. But then they stuck together, and then they've gone through so much that, you know, that bond is just deepened, and, like, the culmination
of that. A found family. Yeah,
absolutely.
They formed a found family, and I think of, you know, it's been happening a few times in, like, superhero movies recently. Like, there was also Shazam: Fury of the Gods, where it was, you know, Billy Batson and his five, you know, the five other kids that were adopted by his family. And this is kind of, I mean, it's obviously they're not adopted per se, but they've found each other and they've decided to create this family to help others, but in turn they're helping each other find meaning in their own lives.
Right.
It's cool. It's such a good message, I think.
And like, just thinking back on how somebody and I, you know, bro, we're just jumping around like crazy, but just thinking back on how Nebula used to be when we first experienced her, or when we first got a hold of, you know, of who she was, who her character was, and now who she is now, dude, it's just the amount of character growth for each character is just, it's mind-boggling. The culmination of everybody, just their experiences, and yeah, that found family.
I also like the fact that each character in this movie has their moment.
Yes.
You know, and some of them have several moments where they each find themselves or find a reason for being part of the Guardians. And they each, in turn, have their own reasons for stepping away at the end. You know, I feel like, in a way, like, this is James Gunn, you know, signing off of the Guardians films. And obviously this has been a huge portion of his life at this point, being with these characters. And
for
you mentioned
years.
You mentioned,
I mean, I'm assuming that they started filming in like maybe 2013, 2012, and they had wrapped sometime, I mean, you know, like last year, and then it came out this year. So dude, about maybe 10 years, 10,
11, just about. And it's awesome seeing his career, James Gunn's career, that is, and all these actors, I feel like they've all gotten huge boosts to their career since joining this series. You mentioned what I said earlier about closure in a previous episode. I do think this film is about, being satisfied with a trilogy. And that's good, because even though there was a little tease about like a future Guardians of the Galaxy team at the end, it was different.
Right,
it didn't feel like it was leading up to another movie. It just felt like these characters had gone on. Like they were in another plane of existence at that point. They were in Valhalla for all I care.
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
The way that this ended, it just felt so right and so natural, and it almost, I hate to say it like this because I never want this to be the case, but it almost felt like the end of the MCU, or like a big chapter of it. It
did, and yeah, man, like it really did feel like.
It's hard to put into words.
Yeah, it is. But like, I don't feel bad about it. It's almost like it's bittersweet, right? Like, and it's like something that you can look back on fondly, and just talking about the themes of closure, the entire movie itself, and really what James Gunn was trying to express is closure of the trilogy, but there's also the closure that Star-Lord has with Gamora, because he had those strong feelings for his version of Gamora, but now we have the alternate universe Gamora in this world that she doesn't know about that life, and he was really struggling about that, but he finally had his closure at the end, like when he had that line, or when Gamora says, I'm still not that person, and he's like, I know, but who you are isn't so bad.
Yeah, I really loved what they did with Gamora, because everyone going into it thought for sure, she was going to find love in Peter again, and it was going to work out for them. I don't think anyone went into this thinking, the logical answer is that this isn't the same person. Yeah. We all just kind of assumed it would work out, and I'm happy it didn't in the way that
right, they really went in there like strategically, and it's like it's not the same person, so they didn't go with the love route, but then they didn't go through the complete rejection route. Yeah, sure, she was pushing him off, but she still, at the end, she still found the respect for him, and like, I guess in a way kind of understood why that past, or why that other version of her liked Peter, because she spoke like, we probably had, I can imagine we had a great time together. And
yeah, what'd she say? She's like, I bet we were fun.
Yes.
Goes,
so like, she like realized that she sees it, but it's still like, that there's that closure there. So and it felt good. Like, they really did a good job about that. Rocket got his closure on his whole, that whole stuff with the High Evolutionary, And
there's a great scene I want to briefly talk about, because you mentioned closure in regards to Rocket and the High Evolutionary, and there's a scene where Rocket finally wakes up, and everyone's telling him that they love him, like even over the phone, as some of them are stuck in the High Evolutionary ship, and then you hear the High Evolutionary speak, and you see Rocket's face. There's like true fear on his face.
Right.
Like he's still carrying. We never see Rocket get scared. I don't think I even remember a Rocket ever being scared, but you see like he shrinks as soon as he sees the High Evolutionary, and it's just such a powerful moment, because this is still a character that's deeply affected by his past, and it's cool to see him finally get his moment when he finally faces off against the High Evolutionary. And actually, let's talk about that last confrontation, because they're trying to get everybody off of the High Evolutionary
right
ship.
And he has like this whole civilization of children that he created too.
Nuts. Absolutely
and
nuts.
that it's somehow Drax is the only one that knows how to communicate with them.
He speaks joop joop.
Right, and then it's like this is like crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're trying to get everybody off the ship, and then like I love that moment that Rocket finds that area with the animals, and like dude, it's such a like touching but heartbreaking, and like you see the like tear. Like you never see Rocket cry, but like he cries in that moment.
Yeah, and you know everybody in the audience is because it's such a well orchestrated moment, because this is 3 years and a holiday special in the making, because you know, just him slowly walking in and seeing, you know, there's eagles in one, there's monkeys over there, there's otters over there. You have the flashbacks, you know, playing in his memory, you know, when he was, you know, unconscious, of Lila, Teefs, and Floor, who we'll talk about.
Yes.
And then he sees this cage full of baby raccoons, and he opens it up. He sees that his species is finally called a raccoon, and he comes to grip with that. And, you know, he takes all the raccoons out of there, and, you know, it's a powerful moment of growth for him, you know?
Right. The high evolutionary, like, finds him, and they have that, like, last stand. And I love that he finally, like, takes on the mantle of not just Rocket, but he's like, you know, I'm Rocket Raccoon. And
yeah, dude, that got such a rise out of the audience every time.
I know. Yeah, dude, it's so awesome. And then it's like the one, like, last, like, fight that they have, like, as a group, you know? Groot comes in, Drax, Mantis, like, you know, Peter. It's such an amazing moment. And, you know, Rocket's like, you know, we have to get the rest of them out, you know? And they save the animals, which is, you know, such a, like, nice moment.
Let's talk about Rocket's cellmates when he was...
Bro, it's a touchy subject, man. It's such a touchy subject.
I don't want to talk about it.
It's so hard, man, because it's such a, like, it's so endearing, but, like, ends in tragedy. And it just, like...
Yeah, you know it's going to end in tragedy the moment he enters that cage and he makes friends. You know,
gosh. Yeah, I know. Especially when they're, like, planning the future, and it's like, bro, they're about to rip our hearts out.
Yeah, man. I don't have too much to say about this besides the fact that they did, like... some heavy emotional manipulation of the audience with those three characters, the four including Rocket. But
right,
I did love the origin. I love how this is what hardened Rocket to be the person that he is. And then as he's, like, going into cardiac arrest in that one scene, he basically does go to heaven, pretty much, or whatever the equivalent of that is for...
Right, he dies for a moment.
Him. Yeah, he basically does. And he sees Lila and, you know, Teefs and Floor are there with her, and she basically says, like, not yet.
Right.
We still got work to do.
Yeah, like, and, you know, that moment where they're like, we've been flying, and he's like, you know, can I go with you? And, like, you just see that, and then...
He's so ready.
He's so ready. And then, like, when she's like, you know, it's, you know, of course you can join us, but not yet. And he's just like, why? You know, they don't need me. What am I good for? You know, that kind of thing. And just, like, kind of seeing them, and then you're like, oh my gosh, like, dude, it's such an emotional moment, because you're seeing Rocket, and then you're seeing Rocket dying, and then, like, Peter's just, like, wailing, like, you know, just from emotion, because he's thinking he's dying, and he's trying to resuscitate him, and then, you know, he's seeing his friends. And like, you know, and what happens to them, like, bro, I'm feeling it again, dude. Like, I'm thinking back on it, and I'm thinking in those moments, like, it is just so sad. Like, you know, when Rocket gets hit with the realization that they're not going to be moving to counter Earth, and, like, I mean, just the way that the high evolutionary just, like, shoves it into his face, because the high evolutionary, like, wants to know, like, why Rocket is, like, he created Rocket, but Rocket just, like, really developed on his own, his brain, you know, like, he just became an inventor, you know, and, like, the way that he was able to figure out why they were having issues with some of their experimentations, that, like, drove him nuts, because he didn't create it. He's like, how did that happen?
Yeah,
like,
that's interesting.
And so the fact that he's like, you know, wow, you could figure out why this didn't work, but you didn't figure out that you weren't going to go there. I was just like, wow, this guy's a douche.
Yeah.
And
this guy's gotta go.
And
that firefight that,
bro,
you know,
where he's
killing.
like, you know, he's building that pretty much, like, that you know, key, the key to pretty much break locks, and he's trying to get them out of there. And, man, like, when you hear that gunshot, you're like, this man just shot, you know, because it's Lila. They get out. He's like, this man just shot Lila, and you know, that was already like a, you know, an absolute sad moment. And then yeah, that firefight, and then when he turns around and he sees Teefs and Floor dead, like, dude, like that moment just, dude, I was just
kills you.
yeah, dude, I was crying in that moment, dude. I was like dang, this movie, but like not in a bad way. It's like, bro, they're like tugging on you, you know.
What I will say, like, something that I can mention that I consider a negative about this movie is that it goes from the saddest moments, and the next scene, even though it's a different scene entirely, it's very light, you know. It'll be like Peter joking on the ship or something, and it's like I still want to cry, but like, so the joke isn't funny to me. It happened a couple times where I was just like, I'm not ready to switch emotions that quickly. But anyway, it wasn't, I don't think it was purposeful. I just think that the way that they wrote each scene in kind of didn't fit perfectly.
I think, I think that the placement of those were to kind of like, because they knew that was like such a low moment, they wanted to kind of bring you out of that so that you're not depressed the whole movie. But
that's probably true.
So yeah, that I would say that's why it was placed there. Oh, another closure moment that I would say, and I loved that moment too, is Drax. And Nebula says that you weren't born to be a destroyer, you were born to be a father. And so that kind of closed the book on him being, you know, a destroyer. But so now he could kind of have that family that, you know, he lost. And, you know, just like that moment that like, you know, that really touched him. Like he felt that, you know, it wasn't like a dumb Drax moment. Like he received that, you know. And I really enjoyed that. And dude, we didn't even talk about Adam Warlock.
Let's talk a little bit about Adam Warlock, because I feel like we're so caught in on like the story of like the current Guardians that we haven't even like mentioned, so that there's a new, you know, player in the midst. Adam Warlock, nothing like his comic book counterpart in terms of personality, but he was very fun on screen, and he has probably the funniest line in the movie where, you know, Gamora tries to, you know, kill, or like she grabs that little animal thing and she says, "Don't move or this thing gets it," and he goes, "Don't be rash."
Yeah, he had
the delivery is so good.
His character was absolutely like ridiculous. Like he was, you know, like a total just bonehead. But yeah, I do like it, you know, in the last of it, that he kind of comes around, and now they like bring him into the fold, and now he's like, you know, on the new Guardians team. Something that a touch that was towards the end of the movie that I absolutely loved that James Gunn did was, and it was a theme throughout the movie, where remember Groot was saying, "I am Groot," and Gamora like half the time was like, "He said that? What?"
Yes.
And then at the end, he said, "I am Groot." And then she was like, "Yeah, it was great working with you." And then she realized that she understood what he said.
Him.
Then in the end, he says, "I love you guys." That wasn't him speaking English. That was pretty much James Gunn, including the audience, saying that now we can understand Groot.
It's so good. It's the thought of that just makes me so like.
It was so good.
Like, it's so good. I'm gonna sleep good tonight thinking about that. It's just like I'm finally in the family.
Right? Yeah. Like I absolutely love that inclusion. At first, I was a little confused, and then I realized, I was like, dude, no, we were like Gamora, we can understand, but now we can understand, you know. So I think that was awesome.
It took 2 viewings for me to like get that, but it's very cool the way that they were able to just handle that, you know, like this anomaly of a character, this tree that talks and fights for no reason and only says, "I am Groot," but everyone understands him.
Right.
And now we finally understand that it's just exposure to him that like you start to finally understand what he's saying.
I felt like in this film I could really, really, really hear the Vin Diesel voice in this one. Yeah, like it sounded so much more like Vin Diesel in this one. And I mean, let's be real, this Groot was pretty Diesel. Like, I mean, he was like buff.
He was pretty Vin Diesel.
Yeah, I love that that shootout that he had on the ship with Star-Lord. That was sick.
And then there's the hallway scene that we
about, that was a really good hallway scene.
A one-shot fight sequence where everyone had their little moment. Even that little like animal thing.
I know, dude. It was so funny. It was just like following them.
They're just like,
Dude, he was like just running through like while everybody's like absolutely just kicking everybody's butt. Yeah, dude, this film, you know, I know that you said that when you were low and they brought you out of that was like a negative, and I'm pretty sure that there's some other negatives that you can pick out, but honestly, dude, I enjoyed the film so much that I don't even want, like, I can't even think of the negatives, which, like, I'm pretty sure they exist, but, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure if I sit on this for a while, I'll have more negatives for sure, but for the time
they'll never
being,
take me out of the place that they'll never be that bad where I'll hate the movie.
No,
absolutely.
No. It's such a good movie, and in my opinion, it's currently my favorite MCU film. Just the way that everything was handled, I feel like it's earned the top spot of my, because the way I saw it was like I saw it a week early,
right,
for, you know, a press screening,
right.
And that was a great experience, but like the fact that a week later I was still thinking about it, like every day at work, I was just every day I was literally just like, man, I can't wait to see this movie again. I usually see MCU films 2 or 3 times in the movies, but I don't usually think about them in my waking moments.
Right, yeah. No, I remember after seeing that, I was like, man, I know I'm gonna see this again, and it takes me.
It just left me in such an emotional and like interesting funk. Like
it's
not
so,
in a bad way at all.
It's so like odd because, like, you know, you're like laughing and you're crying throughout the film, and it ends in such a bittersweet moment, but like you leave like weirdly sad, like content.
Totally.
I have not left.
Yeah,
dude, I can tell you that there's never been a time that I have left an MCU film content.
Yeah, I could see what you're saying. Yeah.
So,
because even after Endgame, which was a fantastic film, it left a whole bunch of loose ends.
Right.
Like we had Thor going off with the Guardians, Gamora's on, you know, she's gone somewhere.
This is,
you know, Peter's back with his friends. Everyone's back to normal.
I know, and you said that this is currently your favorite, but honestly, to tell you the truth, at least in this moment in time, dude, is literally the best MCU movie that's out right now. Like in these past phases, it seems like they've been kind of like lost. I don't know what they're trying to build up to, but this was just like a moment in time that I'm like, man, this was like a good MCU film. You know, I'm glad that they made some changes. They kind of broke out of a lot of that MCU formula, and I hope that there's a lot that can be learned from this film that they can move forward with other MCU films. You know, not try to copy it, but there's a lot that works that I would say that they could use for other MCU films.
Anthony, I couldn't agree more, but I think it's time for our closing statements. You mentioned that you think it's the best MCU film of all time, and I'm ready to agree with you. I also think it's the best MCU film of all time.
Isn't that crazy, like that sentence? Guardians of the Galaxy, deep cut team being like up there out of all of them. You know, because you think back on the Avenger films and stuff, you're like, man, they were good, but this one rises above.
It was just, it touched me in a way that like I've never.
You need that though. You need different.
You
need to add different too. But so yeah, man. For 4 thumbs up, my 2 thumbs, I'm gonna call my big toes thumbs. Okay, so.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'll raise my toes to that. Thank you guys so much for listening to us here for our 57th episode?
57th.
57 episodes. Thank you guys. It was fun talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Next time we're talking Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I can't wait to get in on that. Anthony, I'll see you next time.
Bye.